Hello, and welcome to the Six Figure Developer Podcast, the podcast where we talk about new and exciting technologies, professional development, clean code, career advancement, and more. I'm John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Ash.
With us today is Carl Franklin. Carl is Executive Vice President of App vNext, a software development firm focused on modern technologies and... John. I'm going to fix that.
Sorry, what did I do?
A software development firm focused on modern technologies. Carl is a 20-plus year veteran of the software industry, co-host and founder of .NET Rocks, the first and most widely listened to podcast for .NET developers. Welcome, Carl.
Just as I was about to cough. Glad to be here. Thanks very much.
So before we sort of jump into the meat of things, would you give our listeners maybe a little introduction to yourself? Like, tell them how you got started in the industry.
Oh, my God. How much time do you have? I don't want to bore you.
20, 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, that was a concise bio that you read. I have been in the industry a long time. I actually got started at a tool vendor company for Visual Basic tools. Actually, they were just starting Visual Basic tools when I came on. It was Crescent Software in Connecticut. And they were doing Quick Basic tools, believe it or not. But it was the same kind of stuff that you do today. You know, you had to like link them in and you had to do a little more command line than we're used to today. But and then they got into Visual Basic and they had a big suite of VBX controls. And then I sort of started writing for then Visual Basic Programmers Journal, which became, which before was called Basic Pro Magazine. And I wrote the Q&A column for that. And I wrote all sorts of articles and started speaking at VBits, and that later became VS Live. And then I started in 1994. That's how old I am. 1994, a website, and nobody even heard of websites at that point, but it was called Carl and Gary's Visual Basic Homepage. And that was with a friend of mine who worked for Apex Software, and they had the infrastructure to support a website. So he basically set it up and showed me how to FTP and HTML files and edit them. And then, that became very popular. And, then I became a regional director and I started a training company, and I was doing stuff with .NET in the earliest days, even the betas of .NET. And then I was teaching ASP.NET classes and VB.NET classes. And then, of course, it just kind of snowballed from there. And then .NET Rocks started in 2002, a podcast before the word podcast was a word. And by the time, RSS and enclosure tags came around, I had a couple of hundred episodes. And so I was like the content to chew on when everybody needed content. So, and then coming from a background of component vendors, I understood what advertisers wanted, and they were currently bemoaning the fact that the internet was eating their lunch and nobody was reading the magazines that they were spending all this money advertising in, and they needed a place to advertise. And I was like, come on over here, I got something for you. So I lived on ad revenue for a while and did more training, and was learning a whole lot from the .NET Rocks audience and the RDs and the MVPs and all of the greatness that was going on in the .NET community. And I just kept going and writing and building and doing projects. And eventually I started App vNext from a newsletter that I sent out to the .NET Rocks listeners. And there was probably like 40,000 people on the list. And I said, and this is an opt-in list. And I said, hey, are you interested in, this is like about the time of HoloLens was getting really cool. It's like, hey, you guys, anybody interested in working on some really cool projects, and they come along? I don't need 40-hour week salary developers, but if you've got a spare 20 hours a week or something like that, and you want to work with me on some things, like 100 replies came back to this little text in a newsletter. And I vetted about 33 or 34 of them. And of that, maybe 10 sort of stuck around, and we started Slack and talking on Slack, and they became our rock stars, and they've just blossomed, and we've all kept at it and done really well. And now here we are, Blazor. No. So that's about as concise of a history of Carl that I can give you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned that you've kind of kept busy, dabbling in a number of different items, entertaining us all with .NET Rocks and providing music to code by.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah, of course. And of course your latest incarnation, Blazor Train.
Right.
Clayton is also a big fan of Blazor, and we've done some live streaming, live coding of some Blazor projects, so we're somewhat familiar with Blazor. But
Right.
wanted to see what your experience has been, what you're seeing in the industry in these early Blazor days.
Sure. Well, from the people who are head down in MVC, I saw a lot of skepticism at first, especially, when you would go to somebody with customers and say, hey, any of your customers doing Blazor? And they like laugh at you. They'd be like, are you kidding me? We've spent 10 years on Angular and getting all our stuff and our projects. And every time a new JavaScript framework comes out, we have to have an edict from God, to make changes. And it's really hard. And, we've invested millions of dollars in this JavaScript infrastructure. And now you want to throw it all away and use C#?
Yes.
And then I'm like, yeah, pretty much. But, customers are reluctant to switch lanes until they know without a shadow of a doubt that this is going to stick around and it's stable and all that. So there's a lot of questions, from people who have been developing for customers for years, and especially in the JavaScript stacks. What is this thing good enough? Is it strong enough? Do you think it's production ready and all that stuff? And what's really cool is I just heard Mark Rendell delivering a talk at NDC online just a couple of days ago. And he's got some stuff that's like how you can piecemeal move a web forms application over to an MVC application without too much, disruption. And then at the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes, he's talking about Blazor, because Blazor is a natural sort of drop-in next way to get to .NET Core from web forms. It kind of has the same level of shall we say the high level approach, and it hides a lot of tech, but that tech works really good. And I was really pleased to hear Mark say, at first I thought it was all hype, and that how could this possibly be so good and so abstracted at the same time. And, when you have high layers of abstraction, you usually give up power and control, but that's not the case with Blazor. And he said it. He said, I have to say that I was wrong. He said, this is so effing cool. I can't find anything wrong with it. I can't find anything wrong with the architecture. I can't find anywhere where it's going to fall down that isn't manageable. And a guy like him saying that just really, warms the cockles of my heart, man.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned web forms as well, because I know that Jeff Fritz has been working on some components that mimic at least the style of the web forms controls that ease the adoption of Blazor by someone coming from web forms.
Jeff Fritz is amazing. He basically, he didn't write it all, but he organized this repository, Friends of Fritz. And basically he got, some input from this guy, and he wrote some stuff, and he got some input from the team. And they put together this community project that's sort of drop-in replacements, Blazor components for web forms controls with the same syntax and everything, so that when you take an ASPX page and you want to move it to a Blazor page, there's going to be minimal disruption. I mean, that's the theory anyway. And they're working towards completing all of the components in web forms. And Mark Rendell mentioned that too. And I've actually interviewed Jeff about it, both on .NET Rocks and on Blazor Train. That's a very exciting project. I just have to say, there's so much web forms out there. How can you not have a project like this? Yeah.
So with with Blazor, one of the things that has been semi up in the air has been the application organization. Like with web forms, I guess not for the benefit, but the community kind of just went to throw everything into the code behind and then call the database.
Yeah.
With MVC, obviously that's a application organization pattern, so it's kind of just given to you. With React, they had Redux, and that was how you would manage your state and everything. With Blazor, what are the trends that you've seen, and does it relate to anything else that somebody might be familiar with?
Well, it kind of reminds me of VB when VB came out and everybody had forms they could drag and drop stuff on. And, they just did the minimal kind of architecture to get things working and running. And that meant code behind button clicks and stuff like that. And Blazor's no different. It's new and shiny. And the lure is to do that, just to get it up running quickly. And I'm even guilty of showing demos on Blazor Train that do that just because I want people to understand what's going on, right? But it isn't prescriptive, and there was a point in the demos that we did in Blazor Train where I actually showed a proper architecture of, on the API side, using well-known return classes that sort of wrap success, true or false, and, a list of errors, and, one for entities and one for a list of entities, and use generics, and then an API manager, or a data manager that's reusable with generics, right? That has some nice link in there, so you don't have to write one for each type of data. And then on the client side, you've got a generic repository for API services that handles all the CRUD stuff that you can just say, I want a new API service of whatever, and then it fills in the rest. And of course, you can customize that too. And, that sort of really showed people just because you can do something quickly and dirtily, if that's a word, quick and dirty in Blazor doesn't mean you should. And so if you're going into production with a Blazor application, the same kind of good architectural principles apply. You don't want to repeat yourself. You want separation of concerns, and you want to use interfaces and inject things where you can, and keep everything as loosely coupled as possible. So I think the software is software, and Blazor doesn't. While Blazor lets you do it the easy way, it certainly doesn't force you to.
Yeah, because a lot of the examples I've seen are like the counter click example where one client clicks and then increments and refreshes and does all the things.
Sure.
There's some chat examples. There's the Blazing Pizza example, which I think is a little bit more involved and shows a little bit more functionality and a little bit more idea of a more fully featured application. What are the... When do we choose Blazor? Is Blazor now the choice for application development, for web application development? And if so, do you go WASM? Do you go Blazor Server? Like, what are the choices, or what are the caveats, or what are the decision points where
what's the decision tree around that? Yeah. Good question. Well, first of all, for me, if I'm doing any kind of greenfield web application now, Blazor is what I choose. Whether it's WebAssembly or Blazor Server, that's what I choose, just because I'm the most productive in it, and I've exhausted like all of the points of it where you can make these decisions, and have now a built-up library of tools that I can go and use. But I think that the reason that you would use Blazor Server, and I'm hoping that everybody knows the difference. Blazor Server is all the code runs on the server, and the magic happens with a built-in SignalR hub and a really, really efficient, compressed, message packed binary format that happens between your browser and the server for UI changes. It's really efficient. Like I've tried doing what Blazor Server does with my own API and, using compression and using all this stuff. And it's nowhere near as fast as the voodoo that these guys are doing. Like, it's really good. So with Blazor Server, the benefit is that you load quickly, right? It's great for small clients that don't have a lot of memory because it doesn't use a whole lot of memory. It basically just keeps what you see, HTML on the screen, and when things change, it ships off commands over SignalR to the server. Server runs the code, keeps a DOM graph in memory for each user, applies the changes on the server, sees what that diff is, and then sends messages back to the client to say, update this div with this and update that span with that. And then it just magically happens. So it's like the best of the plumbing that you've ever done with your basic JavaScript infrastructure around APIs, but that's all off the table. Like, that is all done. So Blazor Server is good if you have, up to maybe 15,000, 20,000 customers that might be using it at the same time. You can jack up an Azure app service, with like 14 gigs of RAM and 4 processors. And that's going to be able to handle that many consecutive clients before you start losing time, before the latency becomes an issue. And they've proven that with tests that they've done. Blazor WebAssembly, on the other hand, has the benefit of running in the browser, but you have to download it, right? And you can do lazy loading, and you can do virtualization of data and all that, and you can do caching and all that, but it has to get there, sooner or later. So there is that hit. Also, Blazor WASM doesn't, you might think that it just compiles everything to WebAssembly and then ships it down to the browser, but that's not what happens. The only thing that's compiled to WebAssembly native is the CLR. So the runtime is binary, and then it's doing an interpretation of all those assemblies that you're loading up. So it is, it's slower for the most part than JavaScript is right now. But in .NET 6 time, right, there's going to be the ahead of time compilation feature, which means that, okay, you might have some, you don't get the CLR per se, but everything's pre-compiled, and it's going to run much more quickly. The benefit of WebAssembly, of course, is that you don't need a server. So that means everything can be shipped off to a CDN, content delivery network, and it can go far and wide, and you can have bazillions of users, and you can manage your own API calls however you want with the traditional means of scaling APIs, right? So it is a trade-off, but what's cool is that, first of all, it's still evolving. Like .NET 6, I think, is when WebAssembly becomes like, yeah. But for now, you can use Blazor Server, and then when you're ready for WebAssembly, if you're ready for WebAssembly, those components, you can take all the components that you have, turn them into a Razor class library, and that same code can be used in WebAssembly. So and I got to say that I like the Blazor component model, programming against it with events and and updates, just as much as I like the fact that it runs in the browser. I love the component model. I like the component model better than writing regular .NET in XAML or whatever. It's so much cleaner and so much less verbose.
So I've been doing DevOps for the last 3 years, so I'm not super. Well, up until today, yeah, just got a new job.
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. I haven't been really able to play with Blazor too much, but other than what we've done on our live streams, is there any time when you would use both of these two, or could you use these two models, both the server side and the server
client
side
side
and the client side? Yeah. Blazor together.
Well, you kind of do have to choose a horse. right? But I showed in an episode of Blazor Train called Synchronicity 5.0 how you can build both a WebAssembly application and a Blazor server application from the same code base and use them at the same time. Essentially, your server looks into it, has a reference to your client project and uses the components from that, but on the server. And so you can do have both of those browsers up at the same time if you go into your solution properties and use multiple startups projects. And so now you've got essentially two browsers that come up. One is running on the client, one's on the server, but it's the same code.
Interesting.
So while you don't want to use both at the same time because you really have to choose, you can put off that decision until you're sure how your application performs in both hosting environments. So that's the value of something like that.
I wonder if you could even use that for like an A/B testing, or even if you're talking about where your server is getting too much load or something like that. Maybe load balance to the client side rendering or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a way that you can test both environments and see which holds up better, see which your customers prefer better. Yeah,
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm slightly disappointed with all of that because there was a demo that Steve Sanderson gave. It was a while ago now, 2.5 years, something like that, and he actually showed the server side generating the initial page load and then passing it off to WebAssembly. But he did like some kind of, only Steve Sanderson can do this hack in the demo.
Yeah,
And then they didn't move forward with that idea, or at least not to the point where they've pushed it out to the public. I was kind of sad that they haven't gotten that out yet.
So I think what you're talking about, I experienced myself. The original episode where I showed that was just called Synchronicity, and it was essentially the Steve Sanderson hack that he showed at NDC. And the whole idea is you add a reference to the client project from the server project, and then you change the app on the server to be the client project app, and then everything just magically worked. And then if you tried that same thing in .NET 5, it didn't work because of the way that Scope CSS and Scope JavaScript work. So that sort of caused that not to work in that way. But of course, Steve Sanderson is a genius. And, I emailed him and said, hey, man, how do I fix this? He was like, oh, you just do this. So I have the fix, and that's in Synchronicity 5. So there is a workround.
Okay, I will have to check that out.
But to be fair, Steve Sanderson is about 3 to 5 years ahead of all of us.
Oh, totally.
So we'll catch up to him eventually.
And the nicest guy you'll ever meet. If you see him at a conference, you walk up to him, you'll be like, I don't know. You're awesome. And he'll just go, thanks.
Wait, how do you walk up to somebody at a conference?
Yeah, well, he's there. I mean, well, okay, all right. Yeah, fair. I forgot. We've spent the last year in isolation, but that's hopefully over soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the latest and greatest bits coming in .NET 6. Hopefully we're still on track for everything that we want in November. I think Rich Lander published on the .NET blog. We're recording this at the end of March. I think he published it mid-March, the preview 2 for .NET 6. Do you know if there are any Blazor bits that they've released in preview 2 already?
I haven't been paying attention, actually, no, because it's going to be so touchy for a while that, I just kind of... But I am watching the repo, and every once in a while I poke my head in there and see where they are. But I don't even think... Is the preview even out yet? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I just read the blog post in anticipation for great things coming. So
yeah, I am. I'm expecting great things. I mean, the whole, the coming together of the cross-platform UI is very exciting to me. So exciting, in fact. All right, go ahead. Ask me.
right.
What's new, Carl?
So,
Go ahead.
so what's new, Carl? You got something in
Well,
the
I'm
works for
so
us?
glad you asked. I am working on a new show. Now, I'm not, .NET Rock's not going anywhere. Blazor Train's not going anywhere. But what I'm going to do is do a new YouTube show where I'm going to go back and forth between Blazor Train and this new show. And this one is all about .NET. And it's all about general .NET stuff, starting with .NET 5 because that's where we are now, moving ahead to .NET 6. We don't have to, we can leave all the old stuff behind. I'm not interested in, old stuff. This is all new. And it's called the .NET Show. So when is this coming out? This podcast?
We are about 3 weeks out.
Oh, okay. So by now you should go to the.netshow.com, and it's THEDOTNETSHOW.com. However, for you guys right now, since that's not available yet, you can go to the.netshow.azurewebsites.net. Go ahead. Just go take a look at my intro. If you want to share your screen too, that'd be fun.
Yeah, sure. 1 second.
And while you're doing that, I'll just tell you that I'm really starting with a focus on Xamarin Forms because I think people need to know that Xamarin Forms is the basis of Maui, the new hotness coming in November, and it's not going away. .NET Forms is not going away. It's just evolving, and they're promising that if you stay with .NET, stay with Xamarin Forms right now, and when Maui is here, you'll be able to migrate your applications seamlessly.
All right, let's see if I can get this to work seamlessly.
Okay.
So chat, hang out when Clayton hits the wrong button.
Right, so
And we all disappear.
Almost.
yeah, where did everybody go?
Oh, well, Clayton's on
Oh,
screen.
because I know why. I know why. It's because
We're in the podcast scene, not the coding scene.
I can do a thing. Maybe.
We've lost everyone. It's great.
And then
Hey, look at that.
Oh.
I need to get rid of the
Now-
extra me though.
Now, can you turn the audio on so we can hear it?
Oh, there we go.
I don't actually hear any audio coming from it.
Oh, okay.
Do I need to
Is it muted?
Well, there isn't any audio coming from it, but it's a YouTube with the audio muted. So if you
Oh,
go
there it
down
is.
to the go
scroll
up.
Oh, okay.
Fan of my other
the
show,
bottom, so
Blazor
we go.
Train.
Okay, 1 second.
Maybe
1 second and I will get the audio out to everybody. There's so
It was
many
broadcasting,
things
yeah.
that have to
I know, dude. I know. I've been
No, don't do that.
I've been hassling. I've been wrestling audio my whole life on computers. You gotta have this output goes into this input, and you gotta get virtual cables, and oh my god,
I'll turn that down a little
things were
bit.
so much easier when I had a patch bay.
Yeah, Wes said the audio was
My name
working,
is
and I
Carl
unmuted
Franklin.
it and could hear it.
perhaps you recognize me from my
Oh, there it is.
long-running
Yep.
podcast, .NET Rocks. Or perhaps you're a fan of my other show, Blazor Train. Maybe you're wondering why I decided to do another show. Well, .NET has evolved.
Carl,
a
I think
lot
it looks
over the
exactly
years.
like you.
Isn't
It
that
started as a
uncanny?
Windows technology, morphed
Yeah.
into an open source cross-platform framework,
See,
and it's
I was
still
gonna say-
evolving. Those of us who remember the old days sometimes assume that everyone knows the
He's even got
history
a
of
stutter.
.NET, but that is not the case. So, because Blazor Train was, is, and continues to be a hit, I decided to split my time between episodes of Blazor Train and this new show, which will focus on broader topics. Currently, I am infatuated with Xamarin technology and where it's going. I've been building Xamarin apps since the introduction of Xamarin Forms in 2014. I even taught Xamarin Forms workshops at
Are you guys hearing
conferences
it?
around the world.
Yep.
Okay.
Like Blazor Train, I'm going to create shorter, digestible
can you-
videos that focus
guys
on different aspects
hear it
of
through Zoom, or
.NET development,
no?
including command
No,
line
that's
and
okay.
IDE
Not through
options.
Zoom. I can hear it through
And
the.
I'll do it all without leaving
No.
anyone behind. This time, There will be no silly train metaphors, sound effects, or other stupid gimmicks. Now, if you'll excuse me,
No
I've got a
silly
cherry
train
tree to
metaphors.
chop down.
No gimmicks.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Thanks.
So we've mentioned Blazor Train a time or two. Do you want to go into a little bit of detail for chat and for the audience here?
Sure, happy to. So it started out where, I got on the Blazor bandwagon pretty early on, and I knew that people that listen to my show and that people who are interested in, rapid development with .NET would be interested in it. So I learned it. I started teaching classes. I dove right in. I started writing, applications that used it. And then I was at a conference few years ago in Poland, I think, and I ran into the Dev Express guys who are friends of mine, the booth guys. We hang out. And they said, hey, maybe Blazor's pretty cool, isn't it? We're doing some Blazor stuff. Maybe you'd like to do a road trip. And I said, well, I don't know anything about your Blazor stuff. He goes, no, not our stuff. Just Blazor. Just go talk about Blazor. What's in the box? And I said, well, yeah, I'll do that. So we planned, and we got a little, SUV, and we drove all over the United States and flew around and went to all these places. And we were like in our, I don't know, 7th or 8th venue, and we were going to come to St. Pete. Remember?
Yep.
Yeah.
We had
and then COVID. It started. I think we were in Portland, or maybe we were in Los Angeles, and the driver started getting a low-grade fever. I think it was Portland. And we were headed to Seattle, and Seattle had an outbreak. And we were like, no, we can't do this. So we canceled the rest of the tour. And I came home after quarantining myself in a hotel room in Portland for a week and a half. I finally came home, and I decided to start doing the Blazor desk show. So we morphed it into, let's do the same content that we're doing, but we'll do it online, and we'll repeat it so that people with different schedules or whatever. And that didn't make too much sense because it was cluttering up DevExpress's video feed with the same content over and over again. So I said, all right, let's make a weekly, like a serial, where we just take these bite-sized topics and tackle them one at a time, so somebody can come and see a menu of the topics they want and just go right in. So that became Blazor Train. So I think we're 40 some odd episodes in right now.
Yeah, there's quite a few episodes.
Yeah.
So with .NET Rocks, Blazor Train, and now this new web show, where do you get the extra hours that the rest of us don't have?
I'm a lucky mofo. I just am. People actually pay me to do this research and make this content. And I can't, it's just a luxury to be able to do that. I mean, I can take a day, 2 days, and just focus on researching my topic and getting a demo app that is killer, and then I can record it and then, show it and all that stuff. I have a lot of friends in the industry, so I can reach out and find people who are doing things that are cool, that are beyond my expertise, and bring them on. So again, I just feel very lucky. I do have customers, like I do have projects that I work on, but they're also watching Blazor Train and learning from it and picking the code and pulling it into their projects. So it just works out. I'm like I said, I'm very lucky. And I'm looking forward to the .NET show, and especially to getting back into Xamarin Forms and, then into Maui later. One thing that's really cool is that my sponsor, DevExpress, just made all their Xamarin Forms controls free.
Oh, wow.
Just download them.
Yeah.
Right. So now there's really no excuse not to do it. And here's the thing about Xamarin Forms. Like, I was doing it in 2014 when it was really early, and hard. And I think a lot of people got put off by the same kind of problems with SDKs and stuff being out of sync, and it wasn't the best experience for a long time. And then it just got a lot better. And today, it's a very different experience of building for Xamarin Forms than it was back then. Yeah, even just a couple years ago, it's a very different experience. It's really pleasurable. So I can't wait to dive into that. I've already written Music to Code By as a Xamarin Forms app. So that's probably going to be my first real demo.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you have any resources that you might point our listeners to who are trying to get into Blazor or Xamarin Forms? Where should they start?
All right. Well, for Blazor, look for the repo Awesome Blazor. So this is a list of every single community and commercial project there is out there for Blazor developers. It's a great resource. Chris Sainty does a lot of great controls and blog posts and amazing stuff. Blazor Train, of course, is a good one. Xamarin Forms, James Montemagno has written a lot of great components, and he is one of the guys on the team that is, the sort of evangelist for Xamarin Forms. So look for his controls. But if you just Google, community Xamarin Forms controls, you're going to find a lot of stuff. The problem is, and I had this same problem with Blazor once Blazor went mainstream, is that there was a whole lot of blog posts and stuff that were all on previews and old bits and things that were completely irrelevant and just should be erased. They should just be gone from Google. But so what my advice is when you're searching for things, use the date feature of the search engine so that you're not getting old stuff. Don't waste your time. I've gone through so many things that, oh, that's really cool. Oh, the code doesn't work anymore. Blazor was like that. Xamarin is like that. So, yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah,
Cool.
it is a bit of a swamp out there as far as that kind of stuff goes. What has been helpful in your career that you might share with those just getting started or those maybe looking to level up their own careers?
Surround yourself with really smart people. It's that simple. Find a Richard Campbell. No, seriously. I mean, that's really it. I mean, surround yourself with people that you can learn from and that are, nice enough to take time to at least, send you a link somewhere that you can't find. Learn how to use the search engines effectively. But I think surrounding yourself with smart people is a really good idea in general. People that are smarter than you, in your perspective, anyway.
Yeah, awesome. So, on that note, where can our listeners go to follow you and keep up with what you're working on?
My Twitter is @CarlFranklin. That's probably a really good place to start because everything that I do that's of any consequence, I talk about on Twitter. Yeah. My Facebook is all over the place. I don't know. Half the people that are my Facebook friends, they send me birthday wishes. I'm like, great. Who the F are you? I don't know who you are. How did you get on my friends list? But so I have some people that are .NET developers, a lot of people that follow the band, some people that are just like local friends. Like, I don't know. My Facebook page is ridiculous.
Yeah, I think my Facebook is mostly people I went to high school with. So we're get to see pictures of everybody's kids.
My wife likes to remind me that she has a manageable group of friends on Facebook. Unlike you, who has 5,000 friends,
They're all
10,000 friends. You have
all
to
close
know
personal friends.
Oh yeah, close personal friends. Yeah.
Well, Carl, this has really been great. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Sure, it's been my pleasure. It's great talking to you guys.
All right, chat, hang out just a few minutes. We'll do the wrap up of the podcast, and then we'll continue answering any questions that you have. So in the meantime, go ahead and fill chat with any questions for Carl, and we'll be right back. Carl is executive vice. Nope, that was Carl Franklin. Carl is executive vice president of AppVNext, a software development firm focused on modern methodologies and technologies. Carl is a 20-plus year veteran of the software industry, co-host and founder of .NET Rocks, the first most widely listened to podcast for .NET developers.
If you like this episode, please like, rate, and review on iTunes.
Find show notes, blog posts, and more at sixfiguredev.com.
And catch us live each week on Twitch, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at sixfiguredev.
This has been another episode of the Six Figure Developer Podcast, helping others reach their potential. I'm John Calloway.
I'm Clayton Hunt.
And I'm John Ash.
And the recording has stopped.
See, I didn't have any problems with those words once I added them back to the sentences.
Yeah, we took a page out of the .NET Rocks playbook, and we just say the things every single episode.
I think that's great.
Now, do
Especially
you
'cause
guys
people
accidentally
don't know.
sign off as one another? Because that happens here occasionally.
Yeah, Ash and I
like-
both signed off as Clayton. I'm Clayton Hunt. Like
Every once in a while, I'll do that, to Richard. Hi, this is .NET Rocks. I'm Richard Campbell. And I'm Carl Franklin. Yeah.
Now, and we're coming up. We're getting close to episode 200.
Wow.
200 in .NET Rocks years. That was probably a decade ago, right?
Yeah,
But,
it was.
You tend to have all-out keggers on 100 level
Not
shows.
anymore. We used to. The funniest one was 100. Because that's where Rory went home and Richard came on. But we had like Chris Sells. We had like all sorts of friends that had been on before. And we used to have this guy who announced the show named Jeff Maciolik. Brilliant guy. I don't know if you remember Jeff, but he was a brilliant guy, but scatterbrained, right? He, it was hard for him to like focus on anything, but he's the first guy I ever met who opened more than 20 tabs in Chrome and knew what they all were and just back and forth like speed of light. Anyway, so Jeff Maciolik used to say a disclaimer at the beginning of the show. The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are not those of Microsoft, its customers, or employees. .NET Rocks is produced by Franklin's Net, which is solely responsible for its content, blah, blah, blah. So he started it off by saying, the opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are stupid, and you're stupid for listening. That was a fun day. But then anyway, it got better.
We might have to see if he can do that voiceover for us.
That's good.
Yeah, I was wondering, with your new show, .NET,
The
.NET show.
Yeah.
How did you manage to get George Washington to do that, or was that a deep fake? I couldn't tell.
No, that was just a picture of George Washington I found on the Googles with no copyright infringements or whatever. A transparent background. I photoshopped it with a green screen, and then basically I animated it with a tool called Crazytalk.
Oh,
Do you know what Crazytalk is?
nope.
So it's a Windows app, and you basically load up a picture, and you tell it where the points in the face are, the eyes and the mouth and the nose, and and you with splines you sort of edit the shape of the face, and then you import a WAV file and say animate it, and it just does it. And you can tweak it. You can tweak those points in case, and you can add like real eyes and real teeth and stuff like that.
Creepy.
You can there's a whole it's very creepy. Man, I did one of William Shatner. So fucking creepy because his eyes look like this. Hi, this is Carl Franklin. It looked really weird, and he had like big teeth with incisors.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, we're going to come up with some really awful stuff. It's gonna
Oh
be
yeah,
great.
it's a time vampire, and it's only $100. So it's like one of those toys you can just buy, and then see you Monday. I'm out all weekend.
Yeah, we've got Wesley's in chat. I know that he's a Xamarin Forms guy, and think
Cool.
that we're looking forward to some .NET MAUI stuff coming
Oh,
in
yeah.
.NET 6.
Yep.
I was
Yeah.
kind of curious about .NET MAUI and Blazor. Those seem to be kind of competing.
Nope.
And how do we rectify that?
You will be able to build MAUI applications with the Blazor syntax. How cool is that? Now, I don't know to what level, like JavaScript to like what, I don't know yet, but Dan Roth says you will be able to
Okay.
use the Blazor, use HTML components and Blazor components and turn those into .NET MAUI apps.
Is this the
So it is
Blazor
written.
mobile? Blazor mobile.
Well, the Blazor
bindings?
mobile bindings is the model.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same model, but it's brought forth into .NET 6.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the coordination of the different teams
Oh, yeah.
delivering quality products and quality software, and being upfront and honest with we're not going to hit that date with everything that we want. Here's
Right.
what you're getting. Here's what you can expect at a later date.
Yeah, and the fact that it's so transparent, you can just watch the discussions.
Yeah.
You know, you can see where they make the decisions on pushing things back and whatever. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, I think Clayton and I first worked together 6 or 8 years ago, doing mostly Knockout on the front end. So I'm familiar with where the software out of the brain is coming from with the Steve Sanderson isms.
Yeah.
Fantastic software.
He's so brilliant. And if you think about all that experience that he had, first building Knockout, and then he used Knockout to build the Azure Portal. You know, all the things that he learned, you know, I never want to do this again. You know, it's like all that got pushed down into the component model. It's just brilliant.
Now, was it the version of the Azure Portal that we have now with the blades, or was it the predecessor to?
No,
to
it's the version we have now with the blades.
Okay, nice.
That's all Knockout, or at least it was.
Was, yeah.
That the first iteration of it. I don't know what they're using now, but
Very,
Yeah.
very impressive.
yep.
So what's next for you? You got anything else that you want to divulge, or do you get much time to play music these days?
Oh yeah, yeah. So my band practices once a week,
Nice.
and we haven't played obviously in a year, but we've been learning new tunes, and we've got some gigs lined up. That's sort of like my release valve, you know.
Are you still working
band.
on the syncing up the audio from different streaming sources?
Oh, you know, I sort of left that one behind once we started Blazor Train. But yeah, it's worth doing again. But man, just the math involved in trying to do the syncing is the hardest thing. I can definitely do mixing, but the syncing is hard.
Yeah.
So what I might do is just put that out in a public repo and say, hey, I need some help here. You math geeks, figure this out. Because, you know, I've sort of surrendered to the idea that it's not going to make me $1 million. I'll probably make tens of dollars on advertising.
Tens of dollars from 12s of users.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But man, if that worked, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. What's the big problem at this point? Is it what types of math problems are you experiencing?
So here's what
I'm going to volunteer Ash because he's
All
pretty
right.
good at math.
Well, it's not so much math, but it's finding like the offsets. So
Yeah.
I found that when essentially what happens is the first person records and sends to the second person. The second person has to wait for this offset to sync up so that it can combine their audio with the first person's audio, right? And then that gets combined and set to the second person, the third person. The third person then has to wait yet a little bit more. But I found that those offsets are dependent on what time zone the person is in. Like it was really weird, and I don't understand why. If the person is in a time zone that's, you know, one time zone ahead, then it's just like a certain number of milliseconds per time zone. But then again, it doesn't always match up.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how to base that. You know, maybe I have to do tests. Maybe I have to do like a sync test before everybody starts, that, you know, when you hear 1, 2, 3, 4, click a button. Maybe I have to like do that kind of thing so that everybody has their sync offset set before they start recording. But that's just extra stuff that they have to do.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a challenge. It's a mind fuck too.
Is it possible to have, if you've got control of the mic and the output, can you like send a beep through to be recorded forcefully on their mic, and then track how long it takes for that beep to go through the system, and then just record that and then do the next person, and so on and so forth?
I mean, that sounds good in theory.
That's the way all my stuff starts.
Yeah, I know that they would have to not be using headphones, right? So if you have headphones on, the microphone isn't going to hear the beep, right? And so it has to go through the microphone in order to. So what I do is I have this thing where I have a recording that I send out as the originator, and we say the alphabet from A to J or A to G or whatever. So I say 1, 2, ready, go. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. That's how I do it. So then when you hear that 1, 2, ready, go, you start saying it along with me. And I can get the offset based on the difference between the two. But it isn't dynamic right now, So, and there isn't any way to programmatically tell, at least as far as I can tell, how to examine that and find the offset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
but it's generally a set offset, like it doesn't drift.
Well, it is per time zone. At least that's what I'm finding now. So if we're in the same time zone, works great. I have a standard offset, and that works fine. But I don't know whether that offset is based on, is some of it the microphone, and the audio system? Is some of it the browser? Is some of it the internet? Is some of it Azure? Right? And what happens in SignalR, because I'm using Blazor server for it. So, what happens in SignalR between, at a certain point, I was just like, ugh.
So what you do is you get them to swallow the red pill, and then that's a trace, and then you just pick up that trace and then go.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Well, Carl, this has been great. We could probably do this all night, but I want to be respectful of your time. Anything else that you need from us, or if there's ever anything that you need from us, be sure to let us know. Sure, we would be happy to contribute in any way we can.
No problem. Yeah, I'm like I said, I'm going to be putting out Blazor sliders. I have a repo out for that now. I'm afraid I didn't talk about that, but this is essentially sliders, splitters.
I was hoping for little tiny hamburgers.
Yeah, I know. That's what everybody thinks. Blazor sliders. Blazor sliders and a side of fries. But yes, they're splitters, really. They split horizontally, vertically, and then you can nest them and all that stuff. So that's a good repo that's out there. But I'm finding a way to really simplify that in the next version, in my free time.
Cool. All that extra free time.
All that extra free time.
All right. Well, thanks so much. Chat, be sure to look in your podcast app in the next I think we said 3 weeks. We'll clean up the audio and get this published for you. Be sure to follow us and like and subscribe and do all the fun things. We will be back on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. for live coding, live streaming of some side projects. And next Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern for live broadcast of the podcast. So with that, we will rate our friend Ramblin' Geek and say goodnight, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.